What's going on, guys? I wanted to bring y'all the deck tech on my Scion of the Dragon Commander deck. Now I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to do several cuts and move into different sections of the deck. I figured this might make the video a little bit more organized, and if it happens to work, I'll probably do the rest of my Commander deck text like this, as opposed to just going by showing one card at a time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my Scion of the Dragon Commander deck. So the mana base is pretty easy to explain. The 10 original dual lands up top, then of course the 10 shock lands, the 10 fetch lands. I thought about running the 10 tri lands instead, and then I kind of realized that having all 10 fetches in the deck with the 10 shocks and the 10 duals equal having any color mana at any point in time that I happen to need it. Because, you know, let's say I have Flooded Strand in hand, but I really need a green. Well, let's go ahead and go get a tropical island. Or let's go ahead and go grab a, I don't know, let's see here. I can grab a temple garden, you know, whatever the case, I can find the color mana that I need with them. Then, of course, I'm running one of each basic land just because Blood Moon is still a thing. And it's kind of just for fun, just for flavor. I had the the 4 altered, and then I had 1 proxy mountain made up to look like them. And I wanted to put those to use. The 5 lands that do need to, might need some talking about. Command Tower, pretty self-explanatory. Mana Confluence, City of Brass works the same way. Cavern of Souls, make those dragons uncounterable. Haven allows me to recur a dragon if I need to, or get 1 mana of any color to cast a dragon, or get an Ugin back from my graveyard. And Vesuva can come into play as a copy of any land in play, so I can get another Haven if I need to, another Cavern, another Command Tower, whatever the case, I can get another land. So the mana base, pretty simple, but very effective. I haven't had any game so far where I've been mana screwed. The next category of cards are Scion targets. These basically just serve as cards that I use only for the purpose of grabbing with Scion. Now, there are some exceptions. Obviously, I don't mind hard casting a Silumgar or an Ojutai or a Stormbreath Dragon, or really any of these for the most part, with the exception of the 2 up top. But for the most part, I want to grab these with Scion. The top row of cards are the ones that I use to end the games most of the time. Nicol Bolas obviously being the first target I go for. Deal 7 commander damage, make them ditch their hand, and it really puts me ahead of the game. Dragon Tyrant can do a one-hit kill anywhere between the mid to late game. Mana Charge Dragon is that card that if it's a multiplayer game, and there's someone on the table that everyone just really hates in my play group, it's usually the Sliver or the Avacyn player, I can just say, well, okay, just give me everything y'all have, and we'll rush and we'll go ahead and kill them. And of course, Molten Steel Dragon I can just use to pay a lot of my life to end my opponent if they're tapped out. I know they don't have any shenanigans up their sleeve, and I can just end the game that way. The second row are protection cards. If someone's trying to target Scion of the Dragon, trying to get rid of it, I can grab one of these 4 cards. Stormbreath is a little bit more limited in that it only helps if I'm facing down Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares, Vindicate, or another removal card that's in white, but it's still fairly useful because there are a lot of Vindicates, Swords, Paths, and what's the other one? Mortifies running around in Commander. The rest of them can all serve as a way to go ahead and get my Commander out of a very tight spot. The 2 on the bottom are cards that I use for either field control or to get the game more in my favor. I can grab Utvara to just amass a huge army with my Scion and my other dragons in play, and I can use Bellfire to level my opponent's field. So these are my Scion targets. These are the other dragons in the deck. These are pretty much just the purpose of having additional cards to cast when I need to. They fit the Dragon Tribal theme, and all around are just some of the better cards. Hellkite Overlord being an 8/8 for 8 flying, trample, haste, fire breathing, and regenerate can be very difficult to deal with. Dragon Broodmother can give me a nice army of dragon tokens that combo well with other cards like Scourge of Valkus and Dragon Tempest, which you'll see here shortly. Ojutai being a flying vigilant creature that helps me tap out my opponent's creatures whenever my dragons attack can be very useful. Atarka can also end game. She is sometimes a Scion target, although the majority of the time she's not. I do want to know that I have used her, though, as a target for Scion to just beat into my opponent's face when I have a bunch of dragons in play. Kolakan, again, serves the purpose of just pumping my dragons and making it easier to kill my opponent with. Eternal Dragon is a way for me to get any color of mana I need due to the fact that its plane cycling can hit any of my dual lands. Tech is one that I run to differ myself from the other Scion player at my play group. She happens to run Draco, so I wanted to do the other artifact dragon that relies on every basic land type. Rith the Awakener is a good way for me to get some blockers on the ground if I need to. Dramoka pumps my dragon army for each dragon that attacks. Treva the Renewer can give me some life gain, and a lot of these dragons, as you can see, run red, so that's usually the color I choose with it. Although with Rith, I can actually use it to choose green, and then gain a bunch of life for each of those saplings. Blade Wing the Risen lets me get back a dragon that was targeted with Scion earlier in the game, and I can fire breathe all my dragons with it. Karthus, because dragons are a thing in Commander, no matter what the deck type is, in all honesty, and giving haste to all my dragons is pretty damn strong. Tenna the Harvester lets me go ahead and recur those dragon targets that I hit with Scion. Thunderbreak Regent makes it more painful for my opponents to target my dragons, and while that doesn't mean as much in Commander, a 4/4 flyer for 4 is already fairly decent, and adding a drawback to targeting my dragons is just a bonus. Scourge of Valkis acts as a way for me to just beat into my opponent's face if I need to with it, but it mostly serves as a way for me to deal damage to my opponent. Hellkite Charger, it can also be a way to end the game if I have enough mana late game. Attack in, pay 7, untap all my dragons, and attack again. Thundermaw Hellkite, which by the way, this is a Thundermaw Hellkite that has been altered to look like a Blue Eyes. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players enjoy that. It's another way for me to close out the game by tapping out all my opponent's flyers and just beating into the face. And then Steel Hellkite is in here for most of the fact that it deals with huge token armies, but again, we're in Commander, and it is a dragon, so it happened to really fall in well with this deck. The list of non-dragon creatures in the deck are very short, but here they are. Dragon Master Outcast can help me get some more dragon tokens in play, so long as every upkeep I have 6 or more lands in play, not too difficult to do. Dragon Lord Servant and Dragon Speaker Shaman make my dragons cheaper to cast, which is very beneficial due to their very high mana cost, and Eternal Witness lets me recur a target that I hit with Scion. The Planeswalkers in the deck are mostly here for flavor, however they are very powerful in their own right. Ugin the Spirit Dragon can be a way for me to get out just a horde of amazing, very large creatures if I need to, using its ultimate ability, or as great field removal. Nicol Bolas is obviously a very powerful card doing the opposite of Ugin. I can wipe my opponent's board, destroy their permanents, or gain control of their creatures. Then the 4 Sarkons down here are the ones that are mostly in here for flavor, but they all serve their own purposes. Sarkon the Mad, being the least useful of the bunch, can still give me a bunch of dragons. So I can go ahead and sacrifice one of my creature tokens, and boom, I get a 5/5 dragon. So that's Saproling, just ditch that and get a 5/5 red dragon on the battlefield. And obviously I can use this -4 to have each of my dragons deal damage to my opponent equal to their power. So that can be a way for me to end out games as well, although usually he is the least useful in the deck. Sarkhan Vol is actually a great way for me to beat into my opponent's face by giving my dragons +1/+1 in haste by upping it up. -2 does let me gain control of my opponent's creature and then tap it, and then its -6 gives me 5 4/4 flying dragons. Sarkhan Unbroken, it's very funny that his name is the Unbroken because he is the most broken Sarkhan printed. He is the Dragon Nissa. Plus wanting to give me 1 of any color mana and draw a card, that's pretty strong. Minusing to give me a 4/4 dragon so he can protect himself, again, fairly strong. But -8 to search my library for any number of dragons and put them on the battlefield, then shuffle my library. I don't even have to attack with this. I can literally just go ahead and make the first card I get Scourge of Valkis, and then everything else that comes out afterwards kills my opponent just based on the amount of damage that I'm doing to him. And then Sarkon the Dragon Speaker can become a dragon, and that's usually the only mode I use on this. His -3 is sometimes useful. I never use his -6. He's, again, mostly in here for the flavor of it. The enchantments of the deck are, again, very small in number, but are all very useful. Crucible of Fire makes my already big dragons even harder to deal with. Dragon Tempest is a 2-drop Scourge of Valkis effect that also acts as a fervor for all my dragons, which is absolutely insane. Moat is a great way for me to hose opponents that don't use flying creatures, which is practically any mono green deck out there, and I have had opponents for rage quit just the second of seeing the ability. Citadel Siege can act as a way for me to pump my dragons if I need to, or tap my opponent's creatures out at the beginning of their combat. Palace Siege lets me recur my Scion targets, and Frontier Siege can be either a way for me to add mana to my mana pool early game, or if I draw it late game, it can make each of my dragons act as spot removal when they come into play. Extremely useful card. Artifacts in the deck are few in numbers, although most of them serve purposes for mana fixing. Mox Diamond, I can ditch any of my lands, and it can act as a 0-drop that gives me 1 mana of any color. So drop a basic land, drop a fetch land, whatever, and I get 1 mana of any color to my mana pool. No matter what land I have in hand, this is usually going to be better. Mana Crypt is a way for me to just go ahead and ramp up mana in the early game. I'm going to kill them long before my life total hits 0 because of it, so not a huge deal on the life loss. Chromatic Lantern is a must-have, making all my lands tap for any color of mana, and also tapping for any mana of any color. And then, of course, Door of Destinies is a tribal card, which makes my dragons ridiculously hard to deal with, without giving them the benefit of Coat of Arms or similar type card effects. Now, there is an enchantment which has a similar effect to Chromatic Lantern. I will be adding that to the deck when I get it. It makes all of your lands each basic land type, so obviously they can produce any mana of any color. A great card to run in addition to the Chromatic Lantern. And the fact that it can also turn on tech single-handedly is kind of funny if you have that one. So I'll be adding that to the deck very soon. Here we have my removal selection. Crux of Fate is a way for me to wipe the board without hitting my own creatures if I need to. Insanely overpowered for Dragon Tribal. Hope Reach is just a much better card for me than, say, Erase or Shatter or Naturalize, because I can destroy an artifact and an enchantment if I need to. Then we have Crackling Doom. Crackling Doom is just an amazing card for us. Deal 2 to our opponent, and they sack the creature of the biggest power they control. We can get their biggest threat off of the board. Putrefy is a way for us to deal with creatures or artifacts for 3 mana. Vindicate lets us deal with anything for 3 mana. Mortify is the same thing as Putrefy, but only it works for creatures and enchantments. Swords to Plowshares because I had an extra and I didn't have an extra path. And honestly, I'd rather give them some life than give them a extra basic land anyways. And then, of course, Mana Drain, while not being an actual piece of removal, stops one of their cards from coming in, and also gives me some mana to cast my next dragon. And the last 3 cards we have in the deck are Living Death, Demonic Tutor, and Sarkhan's Triumph. Demonic Tutor and Sarkhan's Triumph are both our tutor to the deck. This one lets us go grab a dragon at instant speed, and this lets us get anything for 2 mana. Living Death is one of the other ways we can close the game out. Each player exiles all creatures from his or her graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards he or she exiled this way onto the battlefield. So, ditch everything we have in play after exiling a graveyard. All those Scion targets now get to come back into play, and we get to beat them into their face. It can be a way for us to easily close out games, and I haven't seen a Scion deck not yet running it. So that was my Scion of the Dragon Commander deck. Let me know what you guys thought of both the deck and the new commander style of video. I always look for feedback, whether it's positive or negative, to let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. But I'd really love to hear about your variant of the Scion of the Dragon deck. While my list is not the most competitive out there, and I know that it certainly isn't budget, I have a lot of fun with it regardless, and it's kind of one of my babies. Along with Duretti, this deck is just one of those things that I poured a lot of money into, and I don't regret a second of it. I actually plan to pimp it out even further, eventually replacing everything with a foil alternative and promotional alternative when I can get my hands on them. But yes, I would love to hear your comments on my deck, and I would love to hear suggestions, what I should take out, what I should put in, and maybe some other cards that I just don't know about that can go into the deck that might benefit it greatly. Feedback is always welcome. I've had a blast making the video, and I hope to do many more for you soon. Until next time, signing out.